This lesson is on using summary functions with your SQL to get information across the whole table. Let's just look at some detailed information here first. I run this. I've got the titles, the price, and the year-to-date sales. Say I wanted to know what was the year-to-date sales for the entire table. I want to add up all the books we've sold. Well, there is a function called the sum function. Basically, it's like a mathematical summing. Now, technically, I can't do this. I can't see detailed information and summary information in one statement. I should have to do it like this. Let me take this out. And this is correct. So I run the statement, and it gives me one row of information because it's one bit of information about the whole table. And it shows how many books we've sold. Unfortunately, MySQL will run if you leave it this way, but it will give you inaccurate results. So if I hit the submit button, you'll see that I got a book here and a price, but that just happens to be the first book and first price that was brought back. It really doesn't relate to the sum of the whole table. So you want to avoid doing this. There's a special way to group things to get summary information by groups of information, but we're not going to do that right now. So just know that if you want summary information and detailed information, you need to use two different statements to get that. One of the rules of thumb of SQL is we have those tables, right? And the tables are grids of information. Now the grids must be regular grids. They have to have an equal number of rows and columns in the sense that it has to be rectangular. I can't have one row with 3 columns and another row with 12 columns. All the rows have to have 3 columns or 12 columns. It has to be a regular grid. In mathematics, this is called a relation. Now, also, anything that we return back from a select statement also has to be a grid. So if I run these two statements here, I'm going to actually take out title and price here. If I run these two, oops, we've got an error. What the problem is I left out a semicolon here. And let's leave this error in this presentation for you so you can just see the kinds of errors you can get. I'll do a little bit of debugging later in the chapter, but for right now, put the semicolons in, rerun the statements. Okay, so now we get it. So here is a regular grid. Remember, we asked for 3 columns, title, price, year-to-date sales. We've seen that. And here is a regular grid. It's a summary of all the year-to-date sales across the entire table. Well, that's a regular grid too. It happens to be 1 row and 1 cell, or 1 column of information, but it's still regular, so that's valid. But you can't get both at the same time, so I really need 2 separate statements to get that kind of information. However, if I wanted to get some other summary information about price, instead of adding them up, I might want the average of the price. And that's done with AVG, is how you look for the average price. Let's put that in there, and I'll run this again. So now I can get the average price and the summary amount values for all the year-to-date sales because they're both answers about the whole table. So it'll appear on 1 row as 2 columns. That is okay. That's legitimate. There are some other aggregate functions that we can use to get summary information. Now let's look at this. I'm going to take out the regular grid here for a moment. The regular grid of all the information that shows the detail, and I'm going to add a count. And it's a count star or count asterisk. And what that does is it counts all the rows in the result list. Let me run this. It says 18 in the book table. However, if I wanted to count not just the rows, but I wanted to count the price columns that have values, watch what happens. I get 16. And the reason I get 16 is when I look at a specific column, it looks at those values and it ignores any row that has a null in that column. And I happen to know that I have 2 rows where the price is null. So it's only going to count up to 16. This is true with the average price. Average price, it didn't average in 18 rows because 2 of the rows had a null in the price. So it averaged the 16 rows where they were not null. And in this case, year-to-date sales, I don't believe there were any nulls. If they were, they would be ignored in the summary amount. Let's look at something else. We have a couple of other aggregate functions that we can use. minimum and maximum. So that's MIN for minimum, maximum just MAX. And I can get both in one statement because there's summary information. Submit it. The minimum price is $12.99. The maximum price is $42.95. So again, since it's across the whole table, that information, I can get that. So we have average, sum, min and max. We also have the count star or count asterisk to count all the rows returned in the result set. And we have a count of a particular column. Now, let's go back to the count for a second. That brings back all the rows in the table, the number of rows. It's 18. But I can restrict this. Remember that the where clause restricts the rows that come back in the result set. So if I said where price is greater than $30 for the book, this where clause will take effect first. It'll eliminate all the rows that don't have a price greater than 30. Then it'll count them. So I run that, and it says I've got 4. I can get a warm fuzzy by doing this. Get rid of the count, and this will bring me the details. And I can see that these prices are all above $30. And I'm sure if I looked at the data that there would be none others that we missed. The math works pretty well in SQL. Don't have to have any fear there. That's how we can use these aggregate functions or these summary functions. And that ends our lesson on summary functions.